Hello 3E. Today we're going to do a lesson on calculating and estimating tax and the total purchase price. So our learning goal for today, so by the end of this class, we're hoping that we can estimate and calculate the tax and total cost for everyday purchases. So you'll remember in the last unit, we were learning a little bit about sales tax. And while we know that there are some things in Ontario that are tax-free or a reduced tax of just 5%, most things that we purchase have a tax of 13%. So for this lesson, we're just going to assume that everything that we're calculating tax on is going to use the tax of 13%. So just a little a review on how to calculate tax and total. So our first step is just to calculate the tax. So we do that by taking our price of whatever item that we're purchasing and then timesing it by our tax rate. So for us, that tax rate is going to be 13%, and we need to write it as a decimal, so 0.13. And then our next step is taking whatever tax we just calculated in that dollar amount and adding it back onto our original price. That will give us the total with tax. So let's just quickly do an example just to kind of refresh our minds. So the tax for this example, let's read it first. Jennifer buys a sandwich for $9.67, and now we're going to calculate the tax on that. So $9.67 times 0.13. And on our calculators, if you do that, it'll give you $1.20. We'll round it to $1.26. And now to figure out the total, we're just taking that original amount of $9.67, and we're adding that $1.26 that we just calculated for tax. And when we add those two things together, we get $10.93. So we're going to be doing something similar when we estimate the tax on our next page in our next example, where we find the tax first, and then once we know what that is, we're then going to add it onto the original amount. So we'll be doing that on the next page, but using no calculators because we're just going to estimate everything. So reasons we might want to estimate the tax is, so if we're shopping in a store and we're trying to see if we have enough money to buy something, because we know if we only have $500 in our pocket and the price tag on something is $500, we're not going to have enough money because we know that it's going to be more than $500 once we add on the tax. So being able to kind of quickly in our heads without having to get out a calculator and do it, so being able to kind of quickly estimate that tax and the total will help us when we're trying to budget as we're kind of working our way through a store. So how to find it? So because 13% is a bit of a more difficult number to work with, when we're estimating 15% is a lot easier, and you'll see the steps that we use to find 15%. And 50% is actually really close to 13%, so that's why we're going to use 15. And we'll see in the end that our answer will be different from the actual calculation. If we were to use a calculator and do it the way we just did above, our answers will be different, but not by too much. So our first step in estimating is finding 10% of the price. So remember that when we're finding 10% of anything, all we're doing is just moving the decimal place one to the left. So if we're looking at this number here, 93.55, we're just going to move our decimal right over here to the left. Sorry, my pen's not quite small enough to show, but it should go in between the 9 and the 3. So that means our new number is going to be 9.355. So we want to now make this an even nicer number. So we're going to round this. In this case, we'll round down because it's closer to $9 than it is to $10. So we'll round it down to 9. And now we've got a nice number to work with. So that tells us that $9 is approximately 10% of that total cost. So we're going to move down now. And we know that 5% is just half of 10%. And we know that $9 represents 10%. So we just need to take that 9 and figure out what is half of 9, because that's going to then tell us what 5% of our number is. So when we do that down here, half of $9 is just $4.50. So if we added $4.50 plus $4.50, so we added it twice, that gives us 9. So we know that $4.50 is just half of 9. So now we've calculated 10% of the price, which is $9, and 5% of the price, which is $4.50. So we've done all the calculations we need to do, but to get 15%, we just need to add those two things together. So because 10% plus 5% gives us 15%, we just need our answers. So our $9 plus our $4.50 will give us what that 15% is as a money number. So we know that 15% of the price is just going to be our $9, so our answer from step 1, plus $4.50, so our answer from step 2. And when we do that, that gives us, this is a little bit, again, easier to do in our head, this kind of calculation, because we're not working with any really difficult decimals. So we know that that's $13.50. So that is approximately 15% of our original price. And that's what we're using for these examples to calculate tax. So that's telling us that this number here, this $13.50, is about the price of our tax. So to find our total, we now would just want to add that tax, that $13.50, to our original amount. So that is our last step. So we're going to take our $95. We're also going to round the original price. So the original price was $93.55. But again, when we're trying to add that without a calculator, it's a lot better just to use a nicer number. So we're going to round that $93.55 into just 95. So that's where I got this 95 from. And now we're going to add our tax to that. So that's what we just calculated in step 3. We're going to add that on. And when we do, we're going to get, it's $108.50. So this is kind of adding that we can do in our head, maybe just by counting a little bit, maybe using your fingers. But again, we don't need a calculator to do this. So that's how we estimate our tax and our total. So this one here was our tax, and this one here is our total. So the last two steps are our answers there. So now let's take a look at an example on our next page here. So Brendan wants to buy a TV but isn't sure if he has enough money. He has $9.50 in his pocket, in his bank account, and the TV costs $799.99 plus tax. So the first step is to estimate. So we're going to estimate and see whether or not we think Brandon can afford this. So what we're going to do, just to make this question even a little bit easier, is right from the start, let's round the number that we're starting with and make it a nicer number. So we're starting with $799.99. So I'm going to round that to $800 because that'll just make our life a lot easier. It's only a cent difference, so we're not changing it too much. So 10% of our 800 here just means we move the decimal place one to the left. So we're going to move that decimal place over here, and now there'd be a decimal there, which means this is $80. So 10% of 800 is just 80. And now finding 5% for our next step here, so this was our step 2, if we're following the example that we did on the last page, was to find 5%, we're just taking half of what we got in the step above. So what's half of 80? Well, that's 40. And now to find 15%, we've already done all the hard work of finding 10% and 5%. And we know if we add those two together, that gives us the 15%, which means we just need to add together our results of 80 and 40. So when we do that, we get 120. So this is our tax. We still need to find the total. So our total is just going to be what we found, our tax, added to our original price. And we're going to use the nice rounded version of our original price. So that means we're going to add this 120 that we just found above, plus our 800. So that's almost our original price. And when we do that, we're going to get 900. This one again represents our total. We're estimating that the total is about $920. Now we're going to go ahead and actually calculate it. So if you think back, we did practice calculating this in one step rather than two. You'll remember instead of doing it, multiplying it by 0.113 and then figuring out the tax and adding it on, there was a quick way of just multiplying the price by 1 decimal 13. So that's what we're going to do here so that we can figure out the tax really quickly in one step. And so now for this part, you are allowed to use your calculator. And we're using the original prices, the ones that are not nicely rounded. We're going to use the actual numbers here. So we're multiplying it by 1.13, and that'll tell us the total with tax. So that is, when rounded, $903.99. So you can see that our numbers are a bit different. So this is our calculated answer. $903.99 is what it would actually be if we went to the cashier and paid for it. And our rounded price was $920. So the numbers are close, but they aren't the exact same. What's nice about what we did is our number is even bigger than the actual number. So it means if you can calculate and round and find the total in your head, and you can afford that total of 920, you can definitely afford it when you get to the cash register and they're going to check you out and you find the exact total. So it's nice to have a little bit of a gap between those and to be over. So to round and estimate a little bit over, so we know for sure we've got enough money. So our question had said that Brendan has $950 in his bank account. So does he have enough to buy it? We can see that yes, both our estimate and our calculation tell us that he does have enough money to buy that. So let's do another example here, because again, the more we do it, the quicker and easier it'll become. So we've got Kate wants to buy a couch and would like to estimate how much the total price with tax will be. And the couch costs $2,199.99. So our first step is just to round this to a nicer number. So I'm going to change it to $2,200. And now we want to find 10% of that. So again, we're just going to use our decimal and think of it at the end and moving it back 1. So that's how we always find our 10%. So that would be 220. So that's 10% of our number, and 5% would just be half of that. So if we take half, what is half of 220 would be 110. And again, you can double check by adding. Is 110 plus 110, does that, if we put those two halves together, does it give us 220? And it does. So now to find 15%, we're just taking our step 1 and our step 2 and adding them together. So we've got 220 plus 110, so that equals 330. So our tax is 330. So now for total, we're just going to take our tax of 330 and add it to our original price, but a nicer version of it, so the 2,200. And again, this is something we can do in our head. We don't have too many, hard numbers to add here. So we've got 25, So $2,530 is our estimate for the total price for this couch. And now we're going to calculate the actual amount. So we can use our calculators here. So our total is taking that original amount. So we're going to use the actual amount here, not the rounded version. And we're timesing it by 1.13 because that's what tax is. And we're going to get $2,485.99. So there's our calculation. So again, we see our numbers are a bit different, but not too far off. Finally, our last example here, Cody is purchasing a pack of DVDs for $19.95, and HST is going to be added to the price, so 13% will be added onto it in tax. So first we want to estimate and then calculate the total cost of his purchase. So we'll do our estimation here on the left. So we know that to figure out 10%, we just have to move the decimal place one to the left. So first of all, actually, I'm just going to change this to $20 rather than work with that $19.95. So we'll change it to 20. So if we move it to the decimal place one to the left, that just gives us $2. So 5% is just half of that number, so $1. And our step 3 is to always add the things that we got in step 1 and step 2. So our 15% is 2 plus 1, so that's $3. So that's our tax. And now for total, we just add our tax, so $3, to our original price, $20. So $23. So there's our total for our estimation. And now to calculate the total for the calculation, we're going to take our original non-rounded price and times it by 1.13. So we're going to get that it's $22.54. So we've now calculated and estimated Cody's purchase for the DVDs. All right, that wraps up our lesson.